Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
It's our literature unit for the month of March, and it's the second day we're talking about our featured novel, The Sympathizer, which I believe won the Pulitzer Prize a while back. And this book, of course, is about a spy, but it's about a North Vietnamese spy, which is a refreshing change of pace for me. Usually the spy novels I know about are about, a British spy or an American spy or maybe a Russian spy. But hey, I'd like this new point of view from a Vietnamese spy.
Yeah, because this war, had a big impact on a lot of people in different countries. This is the first time I've had a story or heard about a story or even a movie that had a Vietnamese spy as the protagonist. The protagonist, of course, is the main character in a book, a novel. So, yeah, we're learning about him. When we left you, we were talking about a letter he was writing to his commandant, explaining that he wanted to unveil himself and tell everything about himself, not have to hide who he really is. So today we're going to continue with that. Our protagonist, the main character, will continue to talk in the first person. So he's telling the story. He's narrating the story, you could say. And because he's a guy, Tom's going to read today's unit. So Tom, take it away.
My confidence in my mission began to falter shortly after our evacuation. It was then that the general succumbed to that most American trait, paranoia. He told me that he believed the northern usurpers had planted a spy among his staff. Wishing to conceal my identity, I suggested that it might be the major, a chubby, inoffensive man whom I assumed the general would not perceive as much of a threat. Alas, I was wrong, and the general ordered me to assassinate the poor man. The major's death haunted me thereafter, but I remained true to my cause. For months, I monitored the general, relaying my observations back to Mon in coded postcards. The general was planning to retake Vietnam using a Vietnamese restaurant and a fake veterans charity to fund a secret military campaign. I saw this ragtag regiment of former veterans and thought, what fools would commit themselves to such a suicide mission? To my horror, I learned that Bon was one such fool. I ignored my orders to remain in the U.S., instead following Bon to Southeast Asia. I did not know how I would save Bon, so this was perhaps foolish of me. On our way to the Vietnamese border, we were ambushed and most of the regiment was killed. Bon and the others were taken to a labor camp. I, meanwhile, have sat alone in this solitary windowless cell for the past 12 months, waiting to learn the truth of why I am here and whether I will ever be released. Respectfully, Captain.
Okay, let's get started explaining day 2 of Unit 15, our literature unit. We're focused on the novel The Sympathizer by Viet Thanh Nguyen. So we've got this letter continuing on from day 1. And Captain goes on to talk about my confidence in my mission began to falter shortly after our evacuation. If something or someone, it's usually a person who falters, they start to lose confidence or strength or momentum, or sometimes you'll hear in movies or read in books where their voice faltered, which just their voice got kind of shaky. They were kind of hesitant to say something. Well, his confidence began to falter, so he didn't have as much self-confidence in what he was setting out to do, being a spy, of course. Now, it has started happening this way after our evacuation. If you're evacuated, it means you've been in a dangerous area. Maybe there's a war going on like there was for them. And if you're evacuated, you're usually taken from that dangerous area over to either a new city, typically a new country. You're evacuated. I know sometimes, at least with the embassy, sometimes some of these embassies are attacked by our enemies, and the government will evacuate their employees that work at the embassy, the Foreign Service folks. So his confidence in his mission just wasn't quite there after they were evacuated. Evacuation, of course, is the noun form.
Exactly. So, yes, his faith in the mission, his belief, his confidence in his mission to go to the U.S. with a general, well, that faith began to falter. Falter just means it began to unravel or fall apart. So maybe this particular spy began to ask questions. Am I really doing the right thing? Are we doing the right thing? Etc., etc. So it was then that the general succumbed to that most American trait, paranoia. So here we've got the phrase to succumb to something. That just means you are controlled by something. For example, you might succumb to greed. You might be a really nice person, really generous, but eventually you just want to make money, so you succumb to greed. You become a really greedy person and start being mean to people and stuff like that. And this particular general was paranoid. Paranoia is the belief that other people are out to get you. You might know some friends like that who are paranoid. They're always talking about everyone trying to defeat them or to hurt them or to kill them. We would describe that person as being paranoid.
Yeah. I've never thought of it as an American characteristic, but that's funny. So he told me that he believed the northern usurpers had planted a spy among his staff. I don't think that's paranoia. Sometimes we go, he's paranoid, but, sometimes there's a reason to be paranoid. And in this case, the general was actually hearing some truth given to him. There was a spy among his staff. He was speaking to him right then. His little aide was the spy. If you're a usurper, that's kind of an interesting word. It just means you've come in and taken a position of power or importance, but you've done it illegally or by force. You're somewhere where you shouldn't be, that little usurper. So you're in the place of someone illegally. And that's exactly what Captain was doing. He shouldn't have been working for the general. He was an enemy. He was a North Vietnamese kid, and he was the enemy. So anyway, I'm sure the captain was thinking, oh no, they've already got this feeling that there's a spy among the staff. I don't want him to discover it's me. So he says, wishing to hide or conceal my identity, I suggested it might be the major. Yeah, if you're a spy, you better be ready to have to kill people. Sometimes in order to keep your identity secret, you're going to have to kill people when they start, figuring things out about you. That's the tough part of the job. Again, conceal is one of our vocabulary words, guys. You can conceal a lot of things. Ladies, if you wear makeup, you might have bought a concealer to put on your face to cover up flaws or imperfections. To conceal just means to hide or keep something from being seen.
Exactly. So here the captain wanted to conceal his identity. Of course, he does not want to confess that he is the spy. Yeah, it's me. You can punish me or whatever. But he's not going to do that. He's still an agent. So, of course, here captain wants to conceal his identity. And so it says, well, maybe it's Major here. This guy, the Major, he's a chubby, inoffensive man. And because he's that way, maybe he really is a spy. But the reason the captain suggested that was because, well, he is chubby, he's inoffensive, and so therefore the general probably will not perceive him as much of a threat. Okay, so I guess that's one way of sort of deflecting the attention from himself. The captain says, well, it must be this fat guy over here. And of course, he won't prosecute him. Fat people, he's chubby, he's really inoffensive, he's a nice person. Why would he be a spy? So hopefully the captain thought that this paranoia would just go away.
Now, the next sentence uses this word, alas. Alas, I was wrong. Alas is kind of an old-fashioned word you see in literature more like in Shakespeare plays. But sometimes we use it as kind of a humorous expression. Just means, oh, sometimes you're trying to express pity or concern. Alas. Yeah, sadly, that inoffensive chubby man then was put to death. He said, I was wrong and the general ordered me to assassinate the poor man. Well, I think that's fair. If you're going to accuse someone of being a spy, you probably deserve to have his death on your hands. If you assassinate somebody, you murder someone in a surprise attack usually. People are assassinated usually for political reasons or religious reasons, social reasons. It's drug kingpins, drug leaders will often assassinate people. Usually if you're assassinated, you're shot in the head.
All right, you are killed for political reasons, sometimes religious reasons. So, he suggested that the major was the double agent, was the spy. So, yes, the general actually ordered Captain here to assassinate the poor man, and he had no choice but to do it, okay? He did not want to reveal his identity, so he had no choice. That was probably something very difficult to do, to shoot an innocent person.
I know.
But if you're a spy, you probably get used to that. You learn to smile as you kill. Now, here in the next paragraph it says, the major's death haunted me thereafter, but I remained true to my cause. So, yeah, he probably tried to be very unemotional about this assassination, but still, killing another person can affect you. This person probably had a wife and kids and stuff like that. So, the death of the major haunted him thereafter. Thereafter just means afterwards. You often hear this in fairy tales, and they lived happily ever after, or they lived happily thereafter, which means they lived happily from that time on.
From that time forward, yeah. We will use this, but it's more formal, guys. And typically you'll see it in writing rather than spoken English. But he remained true to his cause. His cause, of course, was being a spy for the Communist Party. For months, I monitored or tracked the general. If you monitor something, you watch it very closely. And he would relay his observations back to Mon in coded postcards. So Mon's a spy too, one of his good friends. And of course, spies always have codes, secret codes, so that not just anybody can figure out what they're trying to communicate. If you relay something, it just means you are kind of giving some information to somebody else. Usually, it's through some sort of communication technique, relay. Can you relay a message to the teacher? Tell her I'll be late this morning. So someone's giving you some information, you receive it, and you pass it on. So passing it on is the part that is relaying the information or relaying observations to somebody.
Okay, that brings us to the midway point in today's lesson. Let's take a break right now, but stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Shelby. 今天继续看《The Sympathizer》同情者这本书，整本书中充满辩证，连书名都令人困惑。是主角、朋友，到底是谁才是同情者？第一段 ，My confidence began to falter， 我的信心开始动摇。Falter， 蛮声或者结结巴巴。His voice faltered， 他的声音发抖。在我们 evacuation 撤退之后，第二句。It was then that... It was... 再加 that 子句，这里是分裂句，要强调的部分放在 it was 和 that 的中间。现在强调 then 那时候，所以 it was then 在 that 子句。Paranoia 疑心病，这本书呢有许多黑色的幽默手法，用疑心病嘲讽美国实事求是、怀疑的精神。接着，他告诉我 that 他相信有北方的 usurpers 篡位者 had planted a spy 安插了间谍。Plant 原来是植物或者动词种植，这里当安插。第四句，希望去 conceal 隐瞒我的身份，我就暗示可能是 the major。major 的 M 大写是指军阶中的少校。 他是个圆胖 inoffensive 无害的男子 whom 我认为将军不会视他为威胁。动词片语 perceive A as B perceive 察觉，将这个人 perceive as 就是视为 much of a threat 大大的威胁。接着 Alas, I was wrong. Alas 感叹词，表示被动时候说的哎或者是哎呀，我错了。将军命令我去 assassinate the poor man。作者用 assassinate 暗杀，而不用 kill， 因为assassinate 是指有计划性的杀人，要置人于死地。kill 通常没预谋的杀人。到第二段，少校的死 haunted me thereafter。haunt 萦绕着，事情 haunt 人，人当主词的时候就会被萦绕着。例如说 He is haunted by anxiety， 他很焦虑。但是我呢，仍忠实于我的目标。第二句，好几个月我监视将军 relaying my observations back to men。 relay 这里当作动词，采分词形式转达，将观察回传给阿敏。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Let's continue with our lesson now. Again, we're talking about the novel The Sympathizer, which is all about a spy unmasked. He wants to reveal his true identity and no longer live in secret. So here where we got back here, the spy was monitoring the general, and he was sending messages back to his friend Mon using coded postcards. He was relaying those observations in those postcards using a special code, and the general was planning to retake Vietnam using a Vietnamese restaurant and a fake veterans charity to fund a secret military campaign. That sounds like a really difficult thing to do. The profits from a Vietnamese restaurant? I mean, Vietnamese food is good, but I don't think you can make that kind of money running a restaurant. And there's also this veterans charity, which is fake. A charity is when you give money to somebody in need, like you give money to poor people or orphans or whatever. A veteran, of course, is somebody who used to fight in a war. I'm assuming this is referring to Vietnam War veterans in the U.S., American men and women who fought in the Vietnam War.
Yeah, and they're using this restaurant to fund a secret military campaign, to raise money for that military campaign. And then the captain says, I saw this ragtag regiment of former veterans and thought, what fools would commit themselves to such a suicide mission? Yeah, it sounds like a not very well thought out plan. Ragtag is a word that you'll see sometimes. It just means something that was thrown together. It's not well organized, and, they probably will never be successful. Maybe you have a group of friends who put together a choir, kind of a ragtag choir. They don't really have a good director, and they just get together and sing songs because they like to sing. Ragtag, that's a fun word. Regiment, of course, is a group of military soldiers that are working together. So, he thought they're crazy. They're never going to be successful. If you commit yourself to doing something, guys, it just means you are determined to do whatever you said you were going to do. People will commit themselves to being a good husband or wife when they get married. You're committing yourself to that person, saying you're going to be true and loyal to them. Here, they're committing or promising themselves to something he's describing as a suicide mission. If something's a suicide mission, it means there's no way they'll ever be successful, and they'll most likely die trying.
Maybe they were overconfident or something. All we got to do is attack this city or something, and we can easily defeat them. So they thought that they could do this, but here the spy thought, You guys are insane. You're crazy. You're nuts. How is that going to succeed? It's a suicide mission. And here the spy, the captain, says, to my horror, I learned that Bon was one such fool. So to my horror means I was really scared to find this out. Bon, one of my best friends, was actually going to participate in this suicide mission. I'm going to lose my friend. He's going to get cut in half with a machine gun the second he steps foot in Vietnam.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. But they're all over there as spies, so, he probably has to go along with it or he'll be found out. Now, he said, the captain says, I ignored my orders to remain in the U.S. So his communist leaders had told him, hey, stay with the general no matter what. Stay in the U.S. But instead, he followed his friend Bon to Southeast Asia. So he returned to Vietnam, at least in the south part. He said, I did not know how to save his friend. He didn't know how he would save him. So this was perhaps foolish of me. Yeah, he just finished telling us that they were fools to go over there and try, but then he himself ends up chasing after them because he cares about his friend. I think it shows his devotion to his friends right here because he knows it's crazy, but he goes ahead and does it anyway.
Yep, he does. And, of course, they're heading off to Southeast Asia, which, as you know, is where Vietnam is located. So here, Captain follows Bon to Southeast Asia. And Captain goes on to say, I did not know how I would save Bon, so this was perhaps foolish of me. That's his feeling here, and maybe it is foolish, something stupid to do, to go to Southeast Asia, especially after the Vietnam War. And as you know, for many years after the war ended, there were lots of refugees leaving Vietnam. They were called the boat people. So things weren't so great in Vietnam for quite some time. So maybe it was a foolish thing to do to go to Vietnam at that time. But on our way to the Vietnamese border, we were ambushed, and most of the regiment was killed. Okay, so they went to the Vietnamese border. Maybe they were coming from Cambodia or something like that, or maybe from China or whatever. So they got to the border, and when they were there, they were ambushed, which means they were attacked secretly by some kind of military people.
I just wanted to point out when we use this verb ambush, it's almost always passive, to be ambushed by someone. So it's kind of a surprise attack. Maybe they were hiding somewhere and jumped out, and most of the regiment was killed, unfortunately. So they definitely had some guns with them. Bon and the others were taken to a labor camp. A labor camp is a place that's set up typically during the war, where prisoners are held, but they're forced to work. And the work that they do is horrible. Very, very hard work, labor camp. That's not what happened to the captain, though. He was separated from the group, and they put him alone in a solitary, windowless cell for, at this point, 12 months, which is a year. I think that would be hell just to have to sit in a tiny, tiny place with no window, no light. Ugh. Now, if you're solitary, it just means you are alone. Nobody else is with you. So if you say, I live a solitary life, it means you don't usually surround yourself with other people. You prefer to be alone. So you're secluded, you're isolated. Here, he's in prison, and he has no one around him, and he's in this tiny, tiny little cell with no window.
Yes, and remember, a cell is a room in a prison where the prisoner is kept. It usually has bars on the windows and stuff like that. So he had to remain in a cell just for one person. And usually those solitary cells are small. They don't have windows. The air is bad. It's dark and stuff like that. So, yeah, you don't want to be solitary in a windowless cell. And in this particular case, though, Captain has been there for the past 12 months. I know being kept in a cell like that would drive me crazy. I'd probably think of ways to commit suicide or something like that. And he's in that cell waiting to learn the truth of why I am here and whether I will ever be released. So, yeah, that must be terrible. He doesn't really know why he's in the cell, and he does not know whether or not he's going to be released. Again, that would be really torture, but at least he gets to write this letter to the commandant. And of course, here's how the letter ends. Respectfully, Captain. Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Here comes our Chinese teacher.
第三句，将军想夺回越南，用越式餐厅和假的退伍军人慈善机构来 fund a secret military campaign. Fund 提供资金 ，a military campaign 是指军事行动。我看见了这个 ragtag regiment。ragtag 衣衫褴褛或者是乌合之众。regiment 军团，然后就想是怎么样子的傻瓜会 commit themselves to such a mission。 commit 从事，后面加反身代名词 themselves， 再加 to 名词，表示说投入于某事。I commit myself to education， 我投身于教育业。他现在是想到底是哪些人会致力于这些自杀式的任务？最后一句 To my horror， 令我惊恐的是，阿邦就是其中一个。第三段，我无视留在美国的命令，跟阿邦到东南亚，我不知道如何救阿邦。So this was perhaps foolish of me. Foolish 愚蠢，修饰 me， 用修饰人的形容词表示某人怎么样，句型就用 This is foolish of me， 或者是 It is foolish of me。若是修饰事情的形容词，介系词改用 for， 例如 It is impossible for me to get a new job。 第三句，到越南边境的路上，我们被 ambushed， 被埋伏了，大部分的军团都被杀了，阿邦被带去劳改营。第四句，我 meanwhile 同时独立坐在这孤独没有窗户的 cell， 在过去的12个月内 solitary 是孤独的 cell 小囚房 waiting to learn the truth waiting 分词构句，等待去了解为什么我来这里，以及 whether 是否我会被释放。why 子句和 whether 子句都接在 of 的后面来修饰前面的 the truth， 他想知道这些真相。告解信到此结束了，写上结尾语 respectfully， 致上我的尊敬。结尾语第一个字母要大写，而且后面还要加上逗号哦。以上是今天的讲解，谢谢收听。
That's it for this particular day 2, guys, of our literature unit. We've got one more day to go, and we're going to talk about some of the themes in the book.And what our author, Viet Thanh Nguyen, was trying to communicate. We hope you'll join us then. For English Digest, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Tom. Goodbye.
Bye.